All righty, everybody. We are at the top of the hour, 10 o'clock in the morning out here in Seattle, Tacoma, Washington area. It is a wonderful, chilly, we think we're in the 30s, and I'm out looking out in the windows and stuff, and it's a beautiful sunny day, but definitely a cold day for us and stuff. So want to first off and foremost welcome you to sharing some of your time with us this morning on the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. I respect your time. I honor your time, and promise to deliver to you as much content as I possibly can over the next 60 or so minutes that we get the pleasure of spending with us and stuff. And so just wanted to touch base with you guys. This is actually our first time utilizing this particular webinar software and stuff. So, hopefully you guys are seeing the exact same screen that I'm seeing and stuff. And you guys are hearing me perfectly and stuff. If you're hearing a little bit of lag time and stuff, what I find works best is if you're able to actually hard plug in, use a cable plug into your computer to view the webinar as opposed to just going off of Wi-Fi. We find that quite a bit and stuff. And so, just want to kind of jump in a little bit in here, and it just as I always tell people, it's like if you see some glitch or something like that, as I said, it's our first time using this particular software and stuff. So sometimes we just got to roll with the punches and stuff. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about structure for today's training. I'm going to give you a brief introduction about myself. Then we're going to go into, the reason for that is I find that especially when I'm sitting in an audience or stuff, or I'm on the other side of the webinar and stuff, side of me always wonders, who is this person that is speaking and training to us today? And it's kind of funny because I'm sitting here in the training studios. I've got the laptop in front of me. I've got the microphone off to the side of me. I got some water, in front of me here, and looking out the windows and stuff of our training studios and stuff. And just want to make sure I connect. I recognized about half of the names that registered for today's session and stuff, and the other half I didn't recognize. So for those of you that shared our training and stuff, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And also for those of you that kind of discovered us through some of our social media, advertising stuff, thank you so much for trusting us and joining us today. From there, we're going to go into some in-depth training. We're going to cover the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth written by Mr. John Maxwell. Unfortunately, I can't cover the entire book as much as I wish I could in an hour and stuff, so we are going to talk about an upcoming mastermind. Now, I want you to understand that there is no pressure. A lot of you that may also know, and a lot of you may recognize my name from Western Washington. You may recognize my name within the real estate world. I actually run a very successful real estate team. And it's very funny, in the real estate world, we'll have trainers come out that will basically do what I refer to as the dangle the carrot philosophy, where they'll dangle the carrot out in front of you for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, what have you, and where you feel like you're just about ready to get some great knowledge and great content, and all of a sudden they go, bam, into their clothes and stuff, to where in order to get in order to get all your answers, questions answered, you have to drop $5,000-$10,000 and fly to Vegas or California or someplace like that. That is not how we operate here. It is. I've always told people, it's like I'm the no pressure guy and stuff. It is. I'm going to deliver as much powerful, impactful content as I can possibly jam into this hour with us and stuff. And my hopes is that you see the level, the quality of training and care that we have, and if you feel that it is where you need to take your business or yourself personally to your next level, I want you to jump on board with us and stuff. Then we're going to have a question and answer period and stuff. It is, as I said, this is the first time using this software and stuff, so my assumption is there should be like a screen or something where you can dump some of your questions into and stuff. I can't see it right now because I literally am looking straight at the slide that hopefully we should all be seeing. And so feel free to ask any questions you have: business training, business development, sales, leadership, marketing. For those of you that personally know me knows I'm also huge in health and wellness. My aspect is our energy level. How much energy we have equates to how much work we can do and stuff. So absolutely, it is. Any questions you have, feel free to dump in there. I will go in depth as far as I possibly can with each and every question out there. For those that I don't know, because I will be the first to tell you what I know, what I don't know. I will help us find who is the right person to reach out to and who the person is to contact and stuff on that, just so that we can answer all your questions. All righty. If you hear kind of a swig of water, you hear kind of a break, it's just me drinking some water here and stuff. So let's chat a little bit, give you a little bit of a background about myself and stuff. There you see my picture. I need to actually get an update. That picture's about 2 years old. Those of us in real estate, we're notorious for having outdated pictures and stuff. So who am I? I'm actually a member of the John Maxwell team as one of their speaker, trainers, and coaches. It is, for those of you that may recognize my name in Western Washington, you may recognize it from our real estate team. I'm actually one of the top producing real estate broker in the state of Washington, and was actually awarded as one of the top 10 real estate brokers in 2016 by the American Association of Real Estate Professionals. I'm also a published author. I published the book, Becoming the Friend in the Business. And how that all came about was a friend of mine that looked at me and said, Greg, I do business with you because you're my friend first, my realtor second. And that led into a goal for me to take the business of real estate, which is traditionally a very transactional type of business, and turning it more into a relationship style business. Well, from that aspect, that led into speaking and training, consulting, and coaching opportunities amongst a huge wide range of industries, real estate being the obviously easy one to figure out, but also into the legal industry, financial services, dental, insurance, all dealing with business development and sales training and leadership. And kind of what the ironic thing is what I will do with my real estate team to generate business and to relate with people is very similar to what I'll train an insurance producer or a dentist or a chiropractor or an attorney or any myriad of basically what I refer to as the professional person that is, has to be top-notch and a player at the game or at the level of where they produce, service they provide for the general public, but they're also responsible for generating their own leads, and they're also responsible for generating their own customers and their clientele and stuff. We all do literally the same thing. We may call our widgets just a little bit differently and stuff, but ultimately the key trainings are all the same and stuff. So as we get into today's training and stuff, I'm going to tell you, cut off all the distractions and stuff. Just, I understand life goes on and stuff, but if you're able to kind of dial in for an hour and stuff with us, awesome. And take notes because I speak fast. As long as technology is working with us, we are recording today's session and stuff. So as long as technology is working with us, you should be able to come back, review it, along with actually being able to pull it up on our YouTube channel and stuff. So I apologize if I'm kind of coughing a little bit. There's a bug going around our neck of the woods, and so far I've been very good at not getting sick or not getting caught. Although tomorrow I actually have 2 training sessions, one with an attorneys and one with a business development group and stuff. So trying my hardest not to hang out with any sick people and stuff like that. So we said the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, written by John Maxwell. As you see there is all 15 laws of growth. And as I said, I wish I could go in depth with every single one of those 15. And unfortunately, in an hour that we have with each other, I just am not able to do that. I would have to speak very, very fast. You'd have to catch the replay and figure out how to slow it down to be able to cover in depth all 15 laws. So what I thought would be really beneficial and really helpful for today is if I could basically kind of go into the highlights of each one of these 15 laws and stuff and how it applies a lot in somebody's either personal growth plan or their professional growth plan. What you're going to discover is a lot of these trainings and stuff, it will fall into both aspects of your life. So with that, let's talk about the law of intention. And the biggest thing is you're going to discover with the law of intention is growth doesn't just happen. And a lot of times when you anticipate that things are just going to happen and they don't, it falls into one of these traps. And for myself personally, it is, some of you may know my educational background is that in the computer world. I'm an old school IT geek. When I got out of the Army, I started working for a company by the name of General Dynamics, and was working basically with tactical computers and tactical communication devices. Well, in the IT world, we had at the time was a certification was referred to as the A+ certification. It was basically kind of like your basic level certification. I mean, it would basically be the equivalent level of your high school diploma if you were working in the IT world. And so, I mean, it is a handful of our techs went and got it and stuff. I registered up for the test. And in all honesty, now keep in mind, I was a lot younger. And I mean, I thought that, my you-know-what did not stink. And my attitude was, I think I was going to college by this point, going after my degree as a computer network engineer. I was working in what I refer to as the IT world, computer world and stuff. My attitude was, I did not need to study for this particular test. Well, so I registered for the test. I paid for the test, took time off of work to go take the test. Anybody want to take a wild guess as far as how well I did on this test? I bombed it. And the reason is because I had the assumption gap was working in my life with that aspect where I just assumed that I automatically would grow. I just assumed that, I would walk in there and basically, knock the ball out of the park and pass the test without having to put any work in it. I did, while I wanted to pass the test, I didn't put forth any effort put forth the effort to show that I had the intentions of passing the test. So a lot of times if you're looking at certain aspects in your life, maybe personally or professionally, you may see that there are certain aspects that are not, not trudging, not going as well as you may want them to be. Take a look and see if possibly one of these gaps may be coming into place that may be stopping you from growing in that particular area of your life, whether it be personally or professionally. All right, our next law, the law of awareness. You must know yourself to grow yourself. Ultimately, people fall into one of three different categories. People who don't know what they would like to do, people who know what they would like to do but don't do it, and people who know what they would like to do and they do it. You can look at any one of these three and you can pretty much probably pigeonhole yourself that you feel you're more connected with one of the three than the other two. And you may find that different avenues of your life and stuff, whether it be in your personal life or your professional life, or maybe both, where you feel that you connect more with one of them than you do the other two. And I looked at this and when I was reading through the book, and I found this very powerful and stuff because, I looked at the first set, people who don't know what they would like to do. Now, the really cool thing about that is you're in that discovery stage. And I'll share with you that your age bracket has nothing to do with whether or not you're doing whether or not you know what you would like to do. As we grow in life, as we grow professionally, as we grow personally and stuff, we will find that where we want our intentions were in one aspect, and our goals may change. A very good friend of mine is the one and only person that I know of that when he was in high school, he said, this is what I want to do professionally for the rest of my life. And now at 50 years of age, he's actually still doing what he wanted to back when he was in high school. He's the only person that I know of that has done that stuff. So many of us, we will grow in a certain field or grow professionally, and then basically we'll get a feeling or a calling, or we'll shift. The next set of people who know what they would like to do but don't do it. To me, that's the scary thing. That's the sad. I mean, that in all honesty, I think that's where depression hides out at. I think that's where people, for lack of a better word, they slowly start to die a little bit inside till either something happens bad enough to force them to get out of their own way, to get into something where they want to be doing, or they just continue to lose their motivation. They slowly start to die a little bit each day. And, I saw, if I'm offending you by bringing this up, I would say I was going to apologize, but I don't, because those people that know me, professionally, know me personally, know that I'm not a surface guy, knows that I'm going to go deep and I'm going to speak the truth to you and stuff. And then there's the people who know what they would like to do and they do it. And I can tell you what, as somebody that, for the most part, I fall into this category almost 100% of the time. And how I relate to it is for those of us that says, for anybody that whines and snibbles about Mondays, I see this on Facebook all the time. It's just, those are people that are not doing what they want to do. But it's like, okay, when you're enjoying what you do, it no longer feels like work. Now, I will admit there are days that I actually sit back and go, okay, this is work. But I mean, it is the majority of the time, well over 9 times out of 10, it is, I get wrapped up with a day and I actually feel energized and feel enthused and stuff because, for me, it's like, it doesn't feel like work. So it's one of those that falls into, I know what I like to do and I'm able to do it. So for yourself personally, I want you to kind of look into that aspect and stuff and see if you can kind of feel which one of those three you may feel that you most closely relate to. And if it's not the one that you want to be, how do you take the steps? How do you make the what do you need to put into your life so that you get into doing what you want to do, or or get back into that where you don't know what you want to do, but get into that discovery phase and stuff. Not sure how many people I know that are doing what they don't want, or what they don't do what they do, but they do it. All right, the law of the mirror. Now, for those of us that are, if you're on this training and stuff, more than likely you're a business leader, a business, an influencer, you're a mover or you're a shaker. And I want you to understand that the more value you see in yourself is the more value you're going to add to the people that you're working with and the people that you're helping and stuff. So the law of the mirror, we're going to go really in depth on how to build your self-image. First and foremost within that is we're going to talk about how to guard against yourself. This is your self-talk and stuff. We're going to get really in depth as far as how to stop comparing yourself to others. And this is one of those aspects I'm always coaching with people on and stuff. And it's like, even though the person sitting next to you in your office is in the same industry and stuff, may on the surface have the same goals, we're all going after different things in our lives and stuff. So, don't worry about how you're stacking up against person A, because I want you to dominate what you want to do in your personal life. We're going to help you move beyond your limiting beliefs. What a limiting belief is a self-imposed restriction stopping you from getting into, from achieving the goals or achieving where you want to go, move into your life and stuff. We're going to help you practice a small, discipline dailies in specific areas of your life. Absolutely help you understanding the value of celebrating small victories. I see so many people that they go after a big project or something like that, and they don't actually take the time to stop and celebrate small victories along the way, and they lose their responsibility, or they lose their motivation and stuff. And a really big thing too is also help you take responsibility for your life. And through this, you will discover that ultimately you are responsible for whether or not for your happiness, for your success, for your motivation and stuff. And this is a very powerful lesson, because once you take that degree of responsibility back into your life and stuff, you take away somebody else's ability whether or not to tell you how you're supposed to feel or what should be going on in your life. So the law of the mirror is a very, very powerful law and a really great chapter within this book. All right, from there we go into the law of reflection. It's going to help you learn how to pause a little bit to allow growth to catch up with you. And a lot of us in this time of year, as we're recording this session here in December 2016, a lot of us find we're kind of in that, we're starting to get into that reflection. We're looking back at, okay, what has happened this last year? What was our, did we hit our targets? Did we hit our goals this last year? And what do we want to set as our goals for next year and stuff? Well, it's really easy just to look at the really great things and stuff, like, hey, what were our biggest hits? What was our what were our greatest things we did? But it's also important to take a look at, okay, what were the things we kind of flubbed up on? What were the things we didn't do so well? For myself, my training company personally, it was actually bringing in this new software and stuff. We had a different software. We're trying to manage up two different types of systems to all create the same thing. And then we brought this software on board that just kind of had everything more or less in the same box and stuff. And that came out of sitting there going, okay, well, while we're doing this and we're really excited we're doing this, we're not quite accomplishing everything that we want to accomplish out of it. How best do we do that stuff? So, it's definitely learn how to spend some time, in the law of reflection. All right, the law of consistency. Motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you growing. As I said, if you're on this training, more than likely, you're either a business owner, a business leader, you're a leader within your business, your community, your organization. The type of person that's attracted to checking out this type of training, or that, in all honesty, that we kind of did our target marketing into and stuff, means you kind of fall into one of those aspects and stuff. And so it's not uncommon for those of us in these types of fields that we will go into conferences or trainings or something like that. And how many of us experience coming out of a conference feeling really jazzed, feeling really on top of the world, and we immediately spend the next 30, 60, maybe even 90 days knocking balls out of the park left and right. And then shortly thereafter, life sets in, problem sets back in, and all of a sudden we start losing our motivation or something of that aspect. And, it is, we start having, we start kind of, life just sets back in. Well, what I discovered is we lost the law of consistency. We came out of a particular training really excited, really motivated. Um, And so, we were knocking the balls out of the park, but we never put anything in to kind of make sure that we can discipline to help keep us growing and stuff. That's one of the biggest reasons I'm such a huge supporter of mastermind style trainings and stuff, is because it automatically builds in that level of discipline and that level of follow-up to kind of take what you've learned and keep it moving forward and stuff, so that you're always learning, you're always growing, and you're also always holding yourself, having somebody that's holding you accountable and stuff. All right. Law of environment. Get ready. I'm about ready to upset some people out there and stuff. Growth thrives in conducive surroundings. Now, it's no big secret that if you are in a toxic situation, if you're in a toxic environment, if you're in a toxic work environment, or if you're in a toxic business environment, that it basically restricts your level of growth. I actually just had this happen not too long ago, where we actually had a client that, in all honesty, was a pretty, was a pretty significant client to have. It was a big ticket item, and it would have been a nice bit of business to close on and to earn the revenue off of. It would have been, it definitely would have been a nice, it would have been a nice injection into our cash flow. But the problem is, this person was very passive aggressive and a very manipulative and just a flat out evil type of person. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and stuff. And it actually hit the point, how many of us have ever had those types of clients where we see the phone rings and we look at it and we don't even want to pick up the phone? And we do here because, it is, that's the level of service and level of commitment that we have. And, I finally hit the point where I had to basically have what I refer to as the come to Jesus moment with our client. And we had to set up a level of expectations as far as what was acceptable, what was going to be acceptable, behavior, how we would not take, what we would be considered as acceptable behavior, what we consider not acceptable behavior. Shortly thereafter, we basically decided that we were not going to be a good fit with each other, and I was very happy to release the person from our agreements and stuff, and they were very happy to move forward and move on and stuff. And some of my team members are actually kind of, there was a little bit of shock and stuff, because it's like they still had that scarcity mindset of, well, we had to service every single customer, we had to service every single client that came into, that we could get into our doors and stuff. And I operate not from the scarcity mindset, but from the abundance mindset. And I actually sat there and said, you know what? I will admit the income that we would have received by finishing up that project, from finishing up that contract, would have been phenomenal, would have been awesome, would have just been absolutely, would have been a nice, injection into our cash flow and stuff. But when you take into the emotional and the creative draining that this person was doing on us, and also the fact of just how rough how much we were just not enjoying working with this person, and how it just it was taking us from that aspect of we were no longer doing what we enjoy doing. Now we were doing what we did not enjoy doing because we were having to work with this person. It was actually better for us to let this person go and to let them go find, work with another person and stuff, as opposed for us to basically stay in that toxic environment stuff. So, you really have to look into, what do you have around you? Is this helping you support you? Is this helping grow you? Or is somebody stealing from you, somebody taking from you and stuff? And keep in mind, sometimes as you personally are growing and stuff, you may start getting criticism by those that you felt that loves you best and stuff. And, keep growing and stuff, because sometimes it's just people like to keep you in what's their comfort zone and where they're safe with having you at, as opposed to having you grow into your life, whether it be personally or professionally. The law of design. Now we're going to get back to some exciting stuff here. So to maximize growth, you have to develop strategies. Now, this kind of falls back into that law of intention. If you want to go, we want to think about it and stuff. Yeah, if we, imagine for a moment what it would be like to sit there, and especially as we go into 2017, of how do I want to design my 2017? So as you're starting to do some business planning, some business growth and stuff, and hopefully you're into that. Hopefully you're not waiting to the last moment to do that stuff. But I want you to look into what would you like for 2017 to look like for you, and how are we going to measure that? How are we going to know that we're winning? It's the attitude of, somebody tells me they just want to make more money. Well, to me, that's not winning. I mean, if technically, really, when you want to if we technically want to get to it, I could say, okay, great. Did you make an extra dollar this year? Cool, you won according to your, to your design there. It is, but I want you to put in your measurements. I want you to see how, what organization, what do you need to do to make sure you have proper organization, and most importantly, what do you put into your life that makes sure that you have that, that consistency and stuff. You have, whether it be an accountability partner or something of that aspect. Just, that's a really cool thing is, especially when you look into this law of design, is like, ironically, we're finding we're kind of in that best position right now, the time of year, as most people are actually starting to look at this for the 2017 year, both personally, both definitely professionally, and they should also be looking at it personally. The law of pain. All right. Good management of bad experience leads to great growth. Fact of the matter is, some of our best learning, some of our best growth has been in some of our biggest moments of pain. I used to for years hated the term the Great Recession, because I would tell people point blank, there was nothing great about it. It kicked all of our teeth in. It was not a fun time to be in business. It was a horrible time to be in business. Myself personally, I had a very large real estate team. We had a very big commercial lease that we were responsible for. I also had a very successful training company that all dealt specifically within the real estate community. Well, then, there was no subtle going off the cliff. We fell off the cliff. I mean, we fell, and we fell fast, and we fell hard. And, it was, my training company pretty much went out of business, because in the course of 3 days, all of our training and all of our speaking engagements, they all went off the calendar. Not that we were doing not that we were doing a bad job. All of our customers literally went out of business inside of 3 days. That's how fast that side of the business fell apart. My real estate team and stuff. I mean, it didn't matter that all of a sudden all of our sales had stopped. I mean, we even had deals dying at the escrow tables because the banks that were funding the loans all of a sudden didn't have any money to fund it. I tell people, it's like, hey, it was, through that aspect, there were moments in my life I was literally crying, hiding underneath my desk crying. I mean, I was in that much pain. There was the aspect of, there were months that, I literally felt like I wasn't keeping my head above water. I was literally just keeping my nose above water just so that we could survive. And I was on a training, I was a guest speaker on a training earlier this year. And in the middle of it, it all of a sudden dawned on me what was so great about that stupid recession. And the great thing about it was, prior to that recession, we all in the business world, we all got fat and lazy. We all got the attitude of, we'll just throw money left and right. We'll throw monies at stuff. If it works, great. If it doesn't, no big deal. And we all got fat and lazy. And the good thing about what happened with that recession is we all learned how to truly run a business. We all truly learned how to be lean and mean. And so, for those of us that survived it, we took that really horrible bad experience and we learned how to adapt. We learned how to change. We learned how to grow our business. So much so that those of us that survived it, just about everybody that I see that survived it, are kicking butts and taking names right now. And if they're not, they're really, really freaking close to doing it and stuff. So, sometimes you have to look at it. I mean, and don't get me wrong, it is when we're in those painful situations, I get it. It sucks. But you really want to stay focused into, and I, in all honesty, wasn't really great at staying focused. I was too busy feeling the pain and stuff. But really get, just staying focused into Where's the growth coming out of this? And that kind of goes back into that law of the environment and stuff. You know, if you're surrounding yourself around a bunch of people that are pissing and bitching and moaning, well, you're going to stay in that painful. But if you're surrounding yourself around people that are looking at how do we get out, how do we move ourselves back up? How do we get back up from this? You're going to be in a lot better, you're going to put yourself in a lot better position. All right. The law of the ladder. And this law of the ladder all deals with your character. And I want you to look at these. What is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items. And it doesn't matter if you're a C-level executive. It doesn't matter if you're on the sales department. It doesn't matter if you're in the HR department, if you're in the human resources. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what position you are in within your company. I mean, it can be from anything from, the janitor all the way up to the CEO. If you're missing any one of those 5 levels of character, it's a really hard person to be of somebody of influence. And I want you to realize for a moment here, just because you may be in a leadership position, or just because you may be, you may consider yourself a person of influence, or just because somebody's in a leadership position doesn't make them a leader. Just because somebody feels that they're in an influence position doesn't mean that they're good at influence and stuff. Especially for those of us that are in sales and stuff, if you don't believe in the product or the service that you're selling, your passion's going to be missing there. And even if that's the one element that you don't have and dialed in, you're operating at, if we take out that one out of 5, that drops us from 100% down to 80%. I know the American school system is still a passing grade, but in business, that's not a passing grade and stuff. So I really want you to look into this. I mean, when you look into the book and stuff, really look at the law of the ladder, and really this really will dive into how your character matters and how your character will help you grow. The law of the rubber band. This is an exciting one. This is one I like. And basically, it all talks about how, basically it helps you get out of what I call that safe space. People that want to hide out where it's safe and where it's comfortable, you slowly, if your business is going stagnant, your business is actually not going stagnant. Your business actually is dying. And the reason being is because, you need to, the law of the rubber band helps you understand the aspect of that you need to constantly be kind of stretching yourself, expanding yourself. There's an old business training out there of you are the equivalent of your 5 closest friends. And while that does have some merit, I will also expand into that is you're also the equivalent of your 5 business activities. And if your 5 business activities is all meant to keep you into that safe space, that safe plan, you're never expanding, you're never kind of stretching yourself, then your business will basically start going stagnant. And, if you go stagnant long enough, just like your money goes stagnant long enough, it will get bored and it will leave you. Now, if you're looking into how do you stretch, how do you expand your business, within that aspect, then all of a sudden it gets you out of your comfort zone. And I always like living in that aspect where I'm just on the outside of being in the comfortable arena. I don't want to be so far over into the aspect where I'm absolutely in, no man's land and stuff. But I definitely always look at it's like, how do I push my business to the next level? How do I push my team to the next level? How do I always take us up to the next level of income or the next level of production or the next level of servicing or taking care of our customers and our clientele? All right, the law of trade-offs. This is kind of one of those tough laws that, and it's a little bit of a tough slap in the face. It's like, and the thing to really get out of this is understanding that every time that you say yes to something, you're basically, in a sense, saying no to something else. And it's truly understanding, you have to start understanding, prioritizing what's important in your life. We go into this concept here of what people refer to as time management, which I consider as pure BS. There is no managing of time. There is no stopping of time. That's why I value time so much. Time is one of those things. It's not just a commodity. It's a sharing of a life experience. So some people refer to me as a time Nazi, but it's just I understand how valuable time is. And so I realize when I say yes to something, I'm in a sense saying no to something else. And so sometimes people will get, that they may get a little upset at me because they feel like I'm, that what's important to them may be a particular sporting event or sort of that aspect. And, I kind of surprise people when I tell them, it's like, to a certain extent, I mean, we're here in, it's football season. We're here in Seattle Seahawks stuff. I don't get all jazzed up and hyped up over stats or something of that aspect. And I tell people, it's like, hey, when the Seattle Seahawks will write me a check, I'll start memorizing whatever stats they want me to remember and stuff. But I mean, it's just, when I do anything sporting events wise, it is more of just spend quality time with friends or those that I care about. So I want you to look into this law of the trade-offs and realize that, sometimes you have to give up to grow up. It is sometimes if you're in the aspect of you have to give up some of that comfort space. You have to give up some of that non-productive space, especially if it's important for you to take your business and take yourself to the next level. You may have to give up some of that, that BS TV time or, I mean, it is, in order to kind of push yourself, education-wise to the next level and stuff. So, I want you to always remember that. It's like, that kind of just, I want you to really dial in and understanding is like how important the value of time is. It is, if I was to tell you, I mean, it's just a simple math and stuff here. If you had, $1,440 in the bank and I was to take $60 out of that, would you notice that? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. But you have 1,440 minutes of every day. And so every time you waste an hour, that's kind of like losing that $60 out of your bank account and stuff. The law of curiosity. Now, this is a fun law. And the growth is stimulated by asking why. I've got some really good friends of mine, and their son's 11 years old. And we recently had Thanksgiving dinner with them and stuff. And the really cool thing about hanging out with a kid is you see that natural law of curiosity. They're always in that degree of discovery. They're always looking at why. And I mean, it seems like the older we get, the more we tend to lose out on that law of curiosity. And I'm not sure why. I think it's just because people start they start dying a little bit more inside each day instead of getting excited about something. And I want you to think back for a moment. Think back of when you first got started professionally, what you do today, how excited you were, how everything was new. And do you still feel that? Do you still experience that? And if not, how do you get that level of excitement, curiosity back into your life? And at that point, how does that, because a lot of times what I've seen and what I've discovered with people that I'm working with is the more excited about what they do professionally or personally, the more in tune they are with it and the more successful they are with it and stuff. So, I mean, this also kind of goes back into, are you doing what you truly love to do? Are you doing what you're enjoying doing? Are you not doing what you're not? Or are you doing what you don't love to do? So you kind of see how all these laws start tying back and forth in with each other. Here we go into the law of modeling. It's hard to improve when you have no one but yourself to follow. There are people in my life that I model that, in all honesty, I have never met. Les Brown, Zig Ziglar. These are some powerful, powerful people that, man, I read their books. I watch their presentations, their speeches on YouTube. I read their articles and stuff. And then there are people that, in all honesty, I pay. They're coaches of mine that, to have them as part of my life so that I can model them and stuff. And I mean, I actually have 3 coaches that they kind of, they work with either different aspects of my life or different businesses in my life and stuff. And, so then there's also what I call my very close friends and stuff. And I mean, who do I look up to? Who do I follow myself after? So, I mean, I really want to look into, if you're going to have a mentor, look at these items here. And this will really help you kind of dial into determine, it's like, is this mentor somebody that I should have in my life? Or is this a person that I should be modeling myself after? Really kind of gives you a framework and stuff of who you should be modeling yourself. And as I said, don't be afraid to seek out those people that you feel that you should be modeling after your life afterward and stuff. Even if even if you have to, even if you have to compensate them. I mean, as I said, I've got coaches because I see the value and of making sure that I've got the right models in my life to move my life forward. The law of expansion. Growth always increases your capacity. What you're going to discover with this growth plan is as you grow more, you can do more and stuff. And so, I mean, there are two key elements that I got out of this particular, that I saw within this particular chapter is, how to increase your thinking capacity, how to get your mind working correctly, and from there, how to get your actions working correctly. Kind of goes back into that self-talk, that that kind of that reflection and stuff is how do you basically help yourself grow. And the funny thing is you're going to discover as you're personally growing, as you're doing better with your growth plan, you're just going to naturally attract people to you and attract opportunities to you that's going to really help you expand and exceed your growth. It just I wish I could point at a certain aspect of science and say that's how it happens, but as I tell people, there are just things that I see that happen that I can't quite explain or understand why it happens. All I know is it happens, and I'm cool with it happening. The law of contribution, a very big one, and it's kind of funny as we all progress with, and I'm not sure of each age bracket everybody is at with this joining us today and stuff, but as we hit our law of contribution. As we grow and we progress with life, and personally and professionally, is all of a sudden we start seeing that law of contribution. I mean, we realize it kind of goes into more or less our legacy building stage and stuff. And it just it's really cool feeling an effect when you hit a stage, both personally or professionally, to where you're able to look back, you're able to look and help somebody move up and stuff. I've always looked at the aspect of the really great leaders in our world, both personally and professionally. And I want you to understand, a great leader is not just somebody that just happens to be a C-level executive or they happen to be the business owner. One of the greatest leaders that I've came across was actually a counselor within a church. He was not a C-level employee professionally. It's just he was a really great leader of working with people. And so one of the traits that I see with leaders is not only are they always looking ahead of how do they grow themselves both personally and professionally, but they're also looking back as who do I grab a hold of to take along with me and stuff. So, and that really comes into that law of contribution is you really help growing yourself. By growing yourself, you help to enable to grow your others. All right, so that wraps up the 15 laws of growth. So with that, I want to jump into a little bit about our upcoming mastermind. So, as I always tell people, it's like some people know the name John Maxwell, some people don't know the name John Maxwell, and I get, and that's all right and stuff. But I always tell people, when I was looking at when we were building up our leadership side of our training company, I wanted to join forces with basically the most powerful, influential person that I could get a hold of. We got talking about that law of modeling and stuff. That definitely was John Maxwell. I've been around John Maxwell for at least the last 10 years. And anytime I always had a leadership style question, I always would, divert back to one of his books and stuff. And it says, he was somebody that I modeled from a distance, and I'm very excited now that I get to model directly with him. And so, who is this mastermind for? It's for anybody that wants to be in a leader, anybody that's in a leadership position, but it's also for anybody that wants to be in a leadership position. It really truly is anybody that wants to grow themselves or their team. If you're in a profession where you provide a service to the public, this is going to absolutely help you, especially as we're looking into getting you on track for your 2017 year. It's really for anyone that's looking for a significant change in both their personal and professional lives, or just flat out anybody that's looking to build and improve their business. A good friend of mine told me that he lost his hunger. I mean, this is going to be a great training for if you find that you're kind of, if you're losing your inner hunger, or if you just find yourself kind of in that rut, this is going to be a great forum for us to really interact to get you out of that rut and stuff. So let's talk a little bit about what the mastermind entails, what it looks like. It's an 8-week mastermind. We're going to actually be starting right after the first of the year, starting Wednesday, January 4th, 2017. You actually see that we have 3 different time slots in there. We have 3 different masterminds that we'll be running and stuff. Just because I know since we're going to be meeting virtually, we will have people all across the U.S. and stuff. And so I know that and some people's either their professional life or just kind of where they're geographically wise, one of those 3 is going to work out better. Spots are truly limited for each one of these time slots and stuff. So if there's one speaking out to you, definitely jump on board, register for it, because it is absolutely on a first come, first serve. As long as as technology works with us and stuff, sessions will be recorded and provided to the participants. As I said, as long as technology works. Murphy's Law every now and then does kind of kick in and stuff, but we want to always make sure just you're going to be able to go back and review the training materials and stuff. Your mastermind leadership team, as you can see, once again, my picture of myself. I'm a member of the John Maxwell team as a speaker, trainer, and coach. And who I actually get trained by is, as you see the individual there on the left-hand side, Mr. John Maxwell himself. And his company is providing exceptional leadership training. As I always tell people, it's like if you're not familiar with the name John Maxwell, go to your local bookstore. Go to the leadership section. What you're going to discover, John doesn't just have a couple of books. He doesn't have a shelf. He has his own section in the leadership area of the bookstore and stuff. So if you were to hire me directly for 8 sessions, it would be just under $1,800. And trust me, it would be worth every bit of it. If you were to hire Don's for 8 sessions, it would be, well, a lot. I don't know what his speaking fee is, but I know it is significantly more than what my fee is. And trust me, it would absolutely be worth every bit, every penny of it and stuff. So, your 8 weeks one-on-one mastermind interaction. We're also going to have a private Facebook group that we can all interact with and stuff. So we can all, we're not just meeting for 60 to 90 minutes a week and stuff. We're actually speaking as stuff comes up. The really cool thing is you're going to see though, so we're going to tie in a lot of accountability and stuff. Question and answer periods for all sessions. We're going to go in depth, and that's kind of where that runs into that 60 to 90 minutes and stuff. You're going to discover some exceptional leadership training. And as I said, recorded calls for your group, so you're always going to be able to go back and re-listen and kind of, because you're going to, you might find that you're at a different space and different times and stuff, so you'll be able to go back and re-listen and stuff. And as always, there is that money back 100% guarantee. So investment for this mastermind, it's not a lot. Not that $1,800 if you were to hire me for 8 sessions directly. Basically what it boils down to is $199 plus your book that you can purchase from us or Amazon or your local bookstore. The reason we don't include the book for the $199 is I know there are some people, they like the hardback book. There's some people, they like the paperback book. Some people already have the book. Some people like it on Kindle. So that's why we just say, okay, it's $199 plus your book. What we're going to also do is we're going to email over to you your training workbook and stuff that you can, I would always recommend to print it out, put it in a 3-ring binder, but that's me. I learned better by actually having, my books and paper. Some of my friends, they love their Kindle stuff. They love looking at their PDFs and stuff. So your workbook and stuff, that's going to be included in that $199. The only time we charge extra for that is we're actually printing that out, putting that together just because it's our cost of, printing and, binding and stuff. So, just like my real estate business and my coaching business, I always back up my actions with my performance guarantees. And here it is. If within 30 calendar days of our last mastermind session, and you have done the work, and by what I mean by the work is you've attended each session, you've completed and you show that you've done all the homework, action steps, and weekly commitments, and if you feel this mastermind was not worth every penny, I'll refund the full amount to you, and you get to keep the content. So for those of you that are ready, now, just jump over to our website, gregttraining.com, click on the mastermind groups, and you should see basically the click buy it now button for $199. And as always, we always have our mastermind, or we have our money back guarantee. So with that, I'm going to jump, we're going to jump back over into our questions and stuff. I think I may have disconnected the screens. And so any questions, feel free to just go ahead and pop them in and stuff, or if you have any questions whatsoever. I'll All right. So I don't see any questions that have popped in. So with that, we will wrap. So with that, we will wrap this up. We'll stop the recording and stuff. Any questions you have, you can always email us out at greg@gregttrainings.com, or you can reach out to us in any one of the aspects of our social networking and stuff. And for those of you that have friends that you can see that you wish was on today's training and stuff, also jump them over to gregttrainings.com, and you will see that there is some we actually have 4 more of these trainings coming up here, 1 more this week and 3 next week and stuff that somebody can register into and stuff. So with that, I still don't see any questions that are popping in. So with that, thank you so much, and if you haven't, make it a great day.